Could this be Australia's best part-time electric vehicle? It's the GWM Haval H6 GT plug-in hybrid with a claimed 180 kilometres of EV driving range available and more than 1,000 k's total range when you're using the petrol engine. I'll tell you what you can realistically expect to achieve, the best alternatives to it, and a whole lot more about the H6 GT plug-in hybrid in this review, so stick around and let's check it out. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. The existing turbo petrol version of the H6 GT continues on, but it's now all-wheel drive only, and it is a few $1,000s cheaper than this model. But let me tell you, I've driven both, and this is a better choice, in my opinion, not only because of the plug-in hybrid powertrain, which I'll cover off the details of shortly, but because of the livability of the car, and we'll get to that in the driving section. Now, let's talk about what you're getting as standard in this H6 GT across both grades. You're getting full LED lighting all around the vehicle. There are 19-inch alloy wheels, and you've also got red brake calipers for sportiness. There's a panoramic glass sunroof, keyless entry, push button start, an electric tailgate. You've got fake leather interior trim on the inside, a digital instrument cluster for the driver, and a infotainment screen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you still got to plug in for that, which is a bit annoying. There's some really great features on the inside, which I'll run you through in a bit more detail when we get inside the vehicle. But let's talk about some alternatives. Considering the price of this car, $53,990 drive away, well, is there anything that comes close? Yes, there is something that comes close. In fact, there's something that is maybe even going to be better for your budget and better for your life. It's the BYD Sea Lion 6. It starts at $42,990, and that is Australia's most affordable plug-in hybrid model. That's the front-wheel drive one. I've driven the all-wheel drive and the front-wheel drive as well, and both of them are really good when it comes to the actual EV driving range you can get, almost 100 k's if you're driving it smartly. And look, I think that it's a fantastic choice if you are looking to spend a little less. And I understand that it might not be to everyone's taste in terms of the styling inside and out, but also you might want to consider, if you're thinking, well, I want to go electric full-time, have a look at the Cupra Tavascan. Now that vehicle starts at just over $60,000, so we're talking a bit of a price bump, but it is the coupe style SUV with fully electric driving, more than 500 k's of driving range, and some seriously impressive interior finishes, and wow, it just looks excellent on the inside and feels really good too. Plenty of space as well, so it could be a great choice for you and your family. And hey, if you're thinking, I want a plug-in hybrid and I want something super practical, there's another BYD I think you should go and check out, the BYD Shark 6, the dual cab ute with a 2.5 ton towing capacity and a decent payload. So it is a very good choice if you are looking to do some more adventurous things. It's got dual motors, it's got heaps of EV driving range, 100 k's in fact, and a very, very enjoyable drive experience to it as well. For a dual cab ute, it is a winner in my opinion. Would you choose any of those, or would you wait for the plug-in hybrid versions of the GWM utes? Subscribe and you'll be notified when I do those reviews. They're coming soon. It doesn't look dramatically different to the existing H6 GT, and in my mind that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's a pretty striking looking piece of design, this thing, and I think it's also a reasonable size, not too big despite the fact that it is larger than some 7-seat SUVs. And I'll put all the dimensions on your screen now so you can see for yourself what you are dealing with. Also, nice to note that you do have towing capacity available for this vehicle, 750 kilos unbraked, 1500 kilos braked, but you need to do the maths when it comes to the weights of this model. Now, let's have a look at the rear. There have been some running changes to the rear end design of all versions of this H6 GT. So they now get clear taillights, which seem to be coming back into vogue, and they've got the black badging finish for the plug-in hybrid. Hey, no annoying little Chinese number plate holsters there anymore. Have a look in the boot. Yes, it does have a good amount of space. Now the number doesn't seem to be that good. 390 litres is the claimed cargo capacity. That's probably to the cargo cover or the top of the rear seat, and I still think it's a very, very practical amount of space. I just took it away for the family weekend away and it coped easily with all the stuff we need to take for a weekend away. Now you've got a light in the back, a 12-volt port, storage tray on that side, another storage tray there, a little shopping bag hook up there, And underneath the boot floor, sadly, no spare wheel. You do get a tyre repair kit and a charge cable, which is nice to note. But yes, no spare, which might be a deal breaker for some people out there. Right, let's jump inside and see what it's like. No dramatic changes to the interior of this car compared to the existing H6 GT. That's no bad thing in my mind because it was a pretty nice feeling cabin and this remains a pretty nice feeling cabin. Look, it's maybe not the ultimate in luxury, but it's got a fair bit of stuff and it might make you feel pretty special. So let's start at the top here. We've got a head-up display in front of the driver, which is excellent. You've also got this digital instrument cluster for the driver. It's got a fair bit of information available on it. You can jump through menus and so forth by using the toggles on the steering wheel, and up here you can change the display by using the buttons on the steering wheel too, so you can keep an eye on whichever aspect of the drive experience you want to. And I think that that is pretty easy to get your head around, I've got to say. And look, it's maybe not the most info-rich display. There's some stuff that I wish I could see more of there, but hey, that's good enough for most people, I would reckon. Now, there are some things when it comes to the steering wheel controls that you need to keep in mind. On this side, well, that's those buttons that interact with that, and you've got a star button there as a favorite. So if you hit that star button there, you can go into the settings and change whichever element you would like it to be. So if you want it to be the steering wheel heating shortcut, then you can do that. But what you can't do is set it up to be exactly custom. So for me, I wish I could use that button right there to turn off that little icon there, which is the speed sign recognition system. You can do that using this screen, but it does take a little bit more work. So you have to go in here and into the car menu, which takes a little bit to load. And then you have to go into intelligent driving and then traffic sign information and then turn it off. And I do have a bit of an issue with some of the lag with this screen. I found myself tapping it incessantly at times and not getting any reaction. So that's a little bit annoying. But look, that is where you might want to spend a bit of time learning some of these controls when it comes to the safety systems. This is not the most annoying car when it comes to the safety tech, but there are some things that do get on your nerves. For instance, there's a little icon that comes up here and says keep safe distance, even if you are keeping a safe distance, and it will chime every time. And if you do have the speed sign recognition stuff on, it'll bing and bong. But look, the screen is pretty easy to get used to, I have to say, and there's a number of different menus and controls. So you've got ventilated front seats and heated front seats as well. There are driving settings that you can adjust using the screen here, including your steering mode. But hey, there's also some simpler ways to do that, and you've got a very simple menu system here. Just pull down that drop down and there are some things available to you there. So thankfully, you can easily turn off the emergency lane keeping system if you don't like the way that it pushes you around in the lane. You can do driver's seat and steering wheel heating there. And there are some other things like your drive modes, your power mode up there. So if you want to trigger it so that it's driving primarily in EV, you put it in EV. EV priority is the default mode. So that's trying to use EV as much as it possibly can. An intelligent hybrid uses the petrol engine a bit more. And I think that there's a really easy level of usability to that drop down, and you've got your other things on here, including Apple CarPlay. But sadly, you do have to plug your phone in. I've got mine plugged in down there with a little cable running to it, as you can see. And that is a nice storage area, and you've got some USB ports on either side, a little 12-volt port. Up here you do have a wireless phone charger, which makes the lack of wireless CarPlay a little bit more annoying, and decent cup holders here, which you know, you'll be able to push that out of the way if you want to. And you've also got a little storage cubby in front. A rotary dial shifter, which doesn't stop when you twist it. It just keeps rotating and rotating, which I find just to be a little bit annoying because it means that it's not as tactile as it could be. Your park button is on top, electric park brake, auto hold there, an eyelash, and here a decent sized center console bin. So all that stuff seems pretty good. There's a decent glove box as well, reasonably large door pockets. In fact, they're actually quite large, but they aren't lined, so things might wobble around in there. And you've got these GT Sports seats in a fake leather trim with some suede style stuff and the GT embroidery as well. They're pretty comfy, I've got to say. I've just spent about 8 hours in this car over the weekend doing some driving. I found it pretty good. Electrically adjustable seats for the front, so that's nice. And you've also got ambient lighting in the dash and on the doors. And like I said, this does feel pretty good. Above, you've got some illuminated vanity mirrors with a little ticket holder there, which is handy. Auto dimming rear vision mirror, which is a plus. Your controls for the sunroof. Yep, it's not a mega sunroof, but it's big enough in my opinion. And you've got a sunglasses holder up there as well. So, yep, the front stuff is all very good. Let's jump in the back and see what it's like in terms of the comfort. That seat is set for my driving position at 182 centimeters or 6 foot, and I've got heaps of room here. Look at this, lots and lots of leg room, heaps of foot wiggle room, and headroom, surprisingly for a coupe style SUV, is very good. Like, I've got inches above my head there, and I think that is one of the things about this particular coupe style SUV. The kink sort of starts behind your head, so it doesn't impact the space in here at all. Now, you've got grab handles up here. There are lights on the side as well. And in front of each of the rear passengers, there are map pockets on the seat backs. You've got directional air vents, which actually do throw a decent amount of air. And you've got a couple of USB-A ports, a little bit old school there. Now, excuse the mess. As I said, this was our family runner to go for a big road trip over the weekend. There are ISOFIX points in the window seats, and you've got 3 top tethers as well, a flip down armrest with cup holders, big bottle holders in the doors. The only real downside in my mind is that you don't get any ambient lighting in the back. And hey, you might also notice that front door trim has a nicer looking finish on it and a silver speaker grille, whereas in the back, you've got a black plastic speaker grille, and you've also got hard, scratchy plastics up the top there. That is a play straight from the cost-saving book, but I have to say, it doesn't feel like a cheapo SUV in here. It feels pretty primo. Powering the H6 GT plug-in hybrid is a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine. It's got 2 electric motors at the front axle, 1 at the rear, and that means, yes, it does have all-wheel drive, and getting the stuff done is a 2-speed hybrid transmission. Now, the combined power and torque outputs for this vehicle are enormous. 321 kilowatts, 762 newton meters, which the brand says means that this SUV can do 0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds. It's undeniably fast, I'll show you that later, but let's talk about the range and charging stuff that you need to know first. On the rear passenger side of this car is where you'll find your fuel filler flap. See that? Just needs 91, which is impressive for a turbocharged petrol car. Most need 95. And on the driver's side rear panel, you'll find your charge port. Now, that might be an issue for some people who are street parkers because, well, you have to drape your cable over the back of it, but it does have some pretty good details when it comes to your charging. So you've got AC charging at a rate of 6.6 kilowatts, which is not bad. And then you've got DC charging, which is also pretty handy, 48 kilowatts, which means 26 minutes, 30 to 80%. And if you're an EV owner, you'll understand, just take those charges when you can. But the 5 to 100% charge time is about 60 minutes. Now, you've also got vehicle to load capability with this vehicle, which is pretty good, 3.3 kilowatts, if you need to use that vehicle to load possibilities. And also, I want to tell you about the battery pack. It is a 35.4 kilowatt hour NMC battery, and that means it's got a claimed EV driving range of 180 kilometers, which is the most of any plug-in hybrid yet in Australia. So let's go see what it's like and whether that range is achievable. So what is the H6 GT like to drive? Well, I don't necessarily buy into the idea of this being a racetrack ready SUV, despite the fact that, well, the marketing material suggests that it should be. It is fast, there's no doubt about that, but it's maybe not necessarily as dynamic a vehicle as some of the other SUVs that you might want to consider if you're looking for a sporty high rider. So it's fine in terms of the ride, the handling, the comfort, the control, all of it is pretty impressive. And I have to say the biggest improvement here is the powertrain. So I drove the turbocharged version of this vehicle recently, or a little while ago, and I was kind of disappointed with it because of the powertrain. So primarily the 2-litre petrol engine and the dual clutch automatic transmission in the standard versions of the H6 GT, well, they left me a bit unhappy because they felt a bit clumsy and inconsiderate at times, whereas this powertrain is way better. Like, it is night and day. This powertrain transforms this SUV to make it far more likable, far more livable, and in fact even a little bit lovable. So I have to say the reasons that I'm so impressed by it is, well, the EV driving range, which we'll get to in the next segment of this video, but also the way that it drives when it's in hybrid mode. So I'm in hybrid right now, and it is kind of ideal in terms of the way that it behaves. You can easily call on a bit more grunt if you need to. So you've got the electric motor and the battery pack helping out when really able to just shoot you along if you need to. It is seriously quick, there is no doubt about that. But look, I think that it's just more easy to live with and more enjoyable as a result of this powertrain just not interrupting your drive experience, which in the previous version of this car, it did. It did make it, well, pretty hard to live with. This is better, way better. And yes, the petrol engine, you can hear it kick into life when it needs to. And then otherwise, if you're driving in EV mode or the car decides that you should be in EV mode, it will have a little audible warning system for outside of the car to tell pedestrians that you're around. My big issue with the performance factor of this car is the braking. It does have regenerative braking built into this system, so that will try and feed some energy back to the battery pack in some situations, but the pedal feel is impacted somewhat. And on my trip over the mountains, I had a couple of instances where it felt like the anti-lock brakes were kicking in to try and stop me from skidding, but I shouldn't have been. It was really quite peculiar, and I didn't really like that feeling either, because it sort of vibrates the brake pedal under your foot and it makes you feel like you don't have as much control as you should feel like you have in a situation like that. So that's something that hopefully they can address, because I haven't experienced it in any other H6 GT that I've driven in the past, because they didn't have regen braking built in. So it's a part-time EV. So let's talk about what kind of EV range you can actually expect to see. For my EV test in this vehicle, I drove a long way. I wanted to see whether you can actually achieve the 180 kilometers of claimed EV driving in real world driving. And while driving over the Blue Mountains is not necessarily real world for everyone, it is for me. I do it fairly regularly. So I saw 120 kilometers of EV driving capability over the mountains, which is bloody excellent in my mind. That saw me from my place in the lower Blue Mountains all the way to Kelso on the outskirts of Bathurst. So that gives you an idea. This can do long distance EV driving, and I wanted to see whether I could replicate that kind of range on the way back home. Again, country road driving from Cowra, and I made it all the way back to Kelso again. So that's another 120 Ks. So realistically, in your mind, if you think I'm easily going to get 120 Ks of driving out of this battery pack, I think that's a good way to approach it. 180 Ks, I reckon you will actually get much closer to that if you do a lot of urban driving and stop-start stuff, because then you'll be using the regen braking a little bit more, and you'll probably be, well, making it less hard for the electric motors to be pushing you along at pace. It's not the best situation for an electric vehicle to find itself in, especially if you're going uphill. So all of that in mind, I think you will be able to see easily more than 100 Ks of driving on EV, no matter how you're driving it. That's my take anyway. But let's talk about fuel consumption, because we need to consider that as well. Alrighty, so there's a couple of numbers you need to keep in mind. The official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for this vehicle, well, it's one of those strange ones, because it's a plug-in hybrid. It's sort of only relevant for a little bit of the drive, maybe not your entire drive, but there are a couple of numbers as well. So the first one you'll see on your screen now, that is incredible. Maybe will leave you incredulous, in fact. But I think you will find that you'll be able to do 100 Ks EV easily, as I said, without having to even bother the petrol engine to come to life. And then you've got your next 100 and the next 100 and the next 100. So in that instance, as I found, you're still going to see 5 litres per 100 Ks, which is bloody impressive, better than what you'll get probably in a Toyota RAV4 hybrid. That's what I've seen in the past, about 5.5 litres in an all-wheel drive RAV4 hybrid. And this, I saw 5. So the hybrid tech here is very impressive. Also keep in mind, it doesn't need premium unleaded petrol. 91 regular is what it can run on if you want to do that. And then the fuel tank capacity is also pretty decent. You'll see it on your screen now. So you should be able to get a reasonably long amount of driving range total out of this vehicle. But wow, the EV driving is just a plus. Just makes this car so much better than it was before. The GWM H6 GT has a 5-star ANCAP safety rating from 2022, and it does have all the stuff you would expect to achieve that kind of score. So there's autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. You've got adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assistance, emergency lane keeping. There's blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, a surround view camera system, which is really actually very good. It's got front and rear parking sensors with an auto braking system and a heap of other little safety friends as well. And thankfully, there is no driver monitoring camera system, which is a plus in my mind, but there is a speed sign recognition system, which might get on your nerves a little bit. It does bing and bong a touch, but it's certainly not as annoying as some other new cars I've driven in recent times. And when it comes to airbag coverage, there are 7. You've got dual front side, a front center airbag to prevent head clashes in the event of a side impact, and full curtain coverage for both rows of window seats. GWM offers a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty for its model range in Australia, and if you choose an electrified model like this, you also get an 8-year unlimited kilometre warranty for the battery pack, which is very, very impressive. And hey, let's talk about the servicing considerations. There's a 5-year capped price servicing plan available for this vehicle. There's 5 years of roadside assistance included with this vehicle. So seems to be a pretty compelling choice when it comes to the ownership stuff, and GWM's dealership presence and footprint across Australia just continues to grow. So it should be pretty good to own, in theory at least. This is not only a way better H6 GT, this is a very impressive plug-in hybrid SUV all around. Look, it's not perfect, and I didn't necessarily see the claimed EV driving range in reality, but I did see easily over 100 kilometers, and that could be all you need to know when it comes to this vehicle. So, tell me what you think about it. Have your say in the comments, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring the bell. That helps a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you when I see you.